Kerry. My name is Kerry Brown, and this is Hang Out with Coach Kerry, Monday mornings, 9 a.m. Are you an entrepreneur that you find yourself, you've got lots of balls in the air, you never know which one to be working on at any given time, you struggle with getting enough customers in your door, enough clients in your door, you are frustrated because you're not on top of your finances like you know that you should be. You have no idea how many people actually call you, and then what your conversion rate is that. How many of those people actually become paying customers? Do you know what your average dollar sale is? Are you even familiar with what that term is? Well, these are all the pieces that make up success in business. Success leaves clues, and part of it is learning and education. And it's my goal, sharing with you these little snippets of business information, training, knowledge on a weekly basis, that it will develop your skill and ability to become much more successful in your business. Does that sound like something you're interested in? Say yes if it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Absolutely.
Good. Good. Well, then you're in the right place. And the good news about these hangouts is the fact that you can watch these anytime. You don't have to be here 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific time Monday mornings, but if you are, well, then even better. So today I have two panelists with me. They're my Academy member. They are Academy members. And they always keep me on my toes by asking me some great questions. So I'd like to introduce them to you and have them tell you a little bit about what they do. So the first one, I'm going to start with you, Bonnie. Bonnie Mitchell, share with our audience what it is you do.
Well, I am Bonnie Mitchell, and I am owner of Stimulus Design. I have been a graphic designer for over 18 years, so I've been doing design for the print industry, and I've also worked within the industry as well, so that's a very unique combination for a graphic designer to have. I basically help businesses visually communicate their services to the people that they wish to do business. So that includes everything from logos to rebranding, annual reports, brochures, a whole plethora of things. And so I'm able to give the clients the complete tools they need in order to conduct their business successfully.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. And I know that you are in the process right now of doing a rebrand of yourself. So for those of you who go to find Bonnie at Stimulus Design, you'll obviously be forwarded to her new brand upcoming as she's working through that. I love it when I see people, with the work that they do, also working on their own business in that context. So I'm looking forward to what it looks like, Bonnie, when you're done.
Great, thanks, Kerry.
You're welcome. So Kathy, you're often an Academy member panelist here, but share with our audience today what you do and how maybe you might be able to help what they might need.
Thanks, Kerry. I have a business called Niche Travel, and I specialize in women's tours all over the world. So you can find me at nichewomenstours.ca or nichetravel.ca. And the tours are just fantastic. We have usually 12 ladies and a tour host, go to destinations all over the world, and we do wonderful women-centric activities. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to travel, and hopefully some of the people on today would like to find out more.
Great. And Kathy, you have something that's pretty interesting on your website that they can get from you for free that would help them with anything that they might need when they travel. Tell them a little bit about that.
Well, it's actually what I call the world's best packing list for women, and it's a combination of my many years of travel with ladies all over the world and all of the neat little tidbits that they've brought along and the things that we found useful for traveling. So it's great. So go on to nichetravel.ca and you'll see where to get a download for that.
Great. Excellent. Fabulous. So what I want to do is recap. This is episode 11, a deeper dive into business systems. Recap what we covered on episode 10 last week, which was sort of a Business Systems 101. And I'm going to encourage you to go and watch that episode because it is it really kind of covers off the general reasons for business systems and some of the initial first steps. So I'm going to do a little bit of a recap for you, but certainly not spend as much time as I did on that one. So why do we need systems? Why don't we just arrive at our desk, start working, do the work of our business, things come in, handle them, do all of that, and at the end of the day, just rinse and repeat and do it over again the next day. Well, one of the main reasons is, and I've learned this in my 16 years as a business coach, is that most people like you, a solopreneur, struggle with overwhelm. They struggle having so many things that are coming at them so many different times that we have to look for ways for efficiencies. We have to look for a way to not have to stop and say, how am I going to do this? What do I have to do? How did I do this last time? And that's a system. That's a process. That every single time you document what it is you do so that you don't have to rethink about it every single time, that's a huge time saver. There's another piece too that's really important in this, is that the customer experience of you will be consistent then as well. There's a phrase that a very successful trainer in the world by the name of T. Harv Eker said, which is, how you do anything is how you do everything. So what that means is a potential customer sees you being scattered, sees you being inconsistent. You promise to get back to them on something at a certain time or within a few days, and you haven't gotten back to them. Immediately what happens is they start thinking, oh, well, if that's how she's dealing with this, then that's how she'll deal with everything else. And so it's really important that you create consistency in your business, because people then will, how you show up one way is how they're going to assume you're going to show up another way. So how you do anything is how you do everything. So what systems and processes do is they lay it out for you so that how you do things is consistent, so that customer-client experience is the same. Also, congruency is really important. In other words, if you say you're going to do something and you brand yourself in a certain way and you have this image out in the marketplace, and yet their actual experience of you is very different than that, then that's not congruent with the messaging you're providing. So again, the systems and the processes you have in place are really important for you to be able to show up the way that you want your clients to experience you. So one of the things that I want you to key on for today is that every action you take is really a strategy. So you'll have marketing strategies. You'll have sales strategies, you'll have customer strategies, and how you actually implement those strategies, those tactics and actions, are what I want you to systemize. I want you to create, whether it's a flow chart, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's just some notes on a piece of paper that you put into a plastic sleeve, so every time you go to do that, you can pull that out. Checklists to make sure you've covered off everything. Especially in a business where maybe you might have a lot of moving parts, it's really critical for you to have those things documented, so you just make sure all those things are taken care of. I'll share with you a story of a client of mine I had a few years ago, a top producing real estate agent, and we were talking about this very thing, systems and strategies, and she says, well, I have a ton of checklists. When I go to meet with a buyer, I have a huge checklist. When I go to meet with a potential seller, I have a long checklist. And she said to me, and I realized long ago, yes, there are pieces in there that the client needs to know, but I do it for me to make sure I don't leave anything out. So if you have a challenge managing maybe expectations with your customers and clients, then maybe there's a point at which you haven't had, maybe you're missing a conversation around expectations. So that would be part of a checklist to make sure that in your early intake or at the very beginning, or maybe even checking on through it, how are we doing in terms of communicating? Having a reminder, having a process in place in order to be able to do that. Because those are really, really critical. Because again, as I said, what happens is, if not, you will become overwhelmed. And overwhelm means you're trying to think of all of those things in your head and remember them. And if you've been watching the Hang Out with Coach Kerry episodes, you know from the earlier modules we talked a lot about your head is not a good storage unit, or it's also not a good reminder unit. So we want you to have a system and a process to be able to remember those things and use your brain for much higher level thinking. Does this make sense to you, Kathy and Bonnie?
Totally. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Great. Good. So last week, to kind of do a bit of a recap, one of the things is that even if you are the only person in your business, if you're what I call a solo entrepreneur, is what I want you to do is I want you to create an organizational chart. And you can start with some very basics. You know, you're the main shareholder, you're the CEO, you're the president, and then out from there you'll have your marketing department, your sales, human resources, you'll have finance and administration, you'll have operations, and you might have AT. And there may be a few others that you might add to that, but that's pretty much what it is. And what you're going to do then is you're going to write position descriptions for each one of those. In other words, what does that role, what does that person do? What are their responsibilities, their roles and responsibilities? Of course, that's easy for you to do right now because you're the one doing all that work. And then as you move down the organizational chart, in other words, under marketing, for example, who's going to take care of your social media? Who's taking care of other kind of campaign you might have? You might have a direct mail campaign, newsletters, you know, all of that. You're going to break all those roles and responsibilities out. Because at some point, even if you never decide to bring on a full-time employee, in order for you to get leverage in your business, so you're not working all the time, and so you can scale your business as a solopreneur, how you'll do that is by outsourcing people to do some of those tasks. So you've already got those figured out, and so it makes a very easy process then for you to be able to go and hire someone because you know exactly what their roles and responsibilities are. And you always start at the bottom of your organizational chart in terms of what you're going to delegate out. So that's your first couple of steps. Creating your organizational chart, your roles and responsibilities. Then what you're going to do is you're going to flow chart those responsibilities. So you're going to pick one of those and you're going to flow chart it. So it's you who's doing it, you're going to do that. And then you're going to test it. You're going to test it against that. Is that what you actually do? Or, you know, are you not following the ideal? So then you're going to go back and you're going to brainstorm some ideas, you're going to redo it again, and you're going to then flush it out again. And then finally, once that's done, you're going to write the text that goes along with that to support it, because then that can become training material, and then it goes into a binder. So now you're building a policy and procedures manual for your business. So that's kind of the basics that we covered last week. That's kind of Systems 101. So I really encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. So now today we're going to take a little deeper dive into it. And the deeper dive is, what are some of the specific areas that you actually want to systemize? And I'm going to encourage you to think about that for your specific business. So take a moment and think about what are the things today that you see that are glaring at you that you need to systemize. So think about that. It could be in marketing. It could be a sales strategy. It could be customer service. It could be how you handle your finances. It could also be the business systems, like when do you plan? Do you have a system for making sure you're planning and reviewing? Maintaining your database, of course, that's part of marketing. So I'm going to invite my Academy members right now to ask me a question that might lead into some more information, and then I'm going to go back to my notes and make sure that I cover everything off. So Bonnie, why don't we go with you first? Do you have a question for me?
Yes, I do, Kerry. My question for you is, what do you feel are the most important systems for sole proprietors to put in place to give them a strong start in their business?
Great question. And really, this doesn't necessarily have to be for somebody who's a startup. It can be anybody. If you're an audience member today watching this and you're new in the business, I really hope that you take this to heart and you actually put some of these in place right out of the gate. If you've been in business for 10 years and you realize that you have a lack of systems, then this is where you're going to start. And the most important place to start is those places where right now you're leaving money on the table, where because of a lack of system, you're not following up with a potential client as quickly as possible. Where you are over-promising and under-delivering. So you're at that point not going to be creating any what I call raving fans, because they're going to be disappointed in their experience, and they're not going to either hire you to do more work, and they're certainly not going to recommend you to anyone else and become a raving fan. So that's the first place, where you're leaving money on the table. Really critical. The other place to take a look at is where you find yourself consistently overwhelmed, and because you're having to rethink every single time this particular procedure that you're doing. Because if it takes you 15 minutes to do something because you have to stop and think about it versus 2 or 3 minutes, that's leaving money on the table, because you could be doing other things like business development, like implementing marketing strategies, like contacting past customers and seeing if there's anything new that you could help them with. So our goal in business, well, actually any business, your number one goal is to determine what you need to do in order to create predictable income. And so if you at this point in time don't know what you need to be doing in order to create predictable income, then that's your mission. What are those things I need to do in order to create predictable income? And with the lack of systems in place, it's very difficult to determine what is predictable income or what is predictable about your business. So that's a really key focus. So I basically talked about 3 areas. One of them is, what do I need to be doing to create predictable income? What systems in place that will help me do that so that I'm consistent and congruent? Number 2 is what is it that's taking me an inordinate amount of time, because every time I stop to do it, I have to rethink it over again, because time is money in small business. And the first one I mentioned, which is, where are you leaving money on the table? Where, because of your lack of systems, you're not making 10, 20, 50% more than you're making right now, and you want to go after those. So Bonnie, did that answer your question, and did that create any ahas for you, or did it raise another question?
Actually, that was a very clear, thorough answer, Kerry. Thank you. Yeah, it definitely makes sense, and it's answered some questions for me.
Great, good, excellent. So Kathy, any initial question for me, or do you want to wait until I've done a little bit more training before you've got a question? Put me on the hot seat.
I'll wait for a bit. There's some things percolating, but let's see what you come up with.
Okay, great, good. So I always like to start when I talk about systems is, what do you have in place for marketing? Every business has a funnel, and this will be an episode that I'll be talking about in the future, which is the typical business model, which is it always starts with marketing. Because without any marketing, you will have no customers to convert into client, or no potential customers to convert into clients, so you won't need any sales strategies in place. You won't need any customer service strategies. You won't need to worry about finance. You won't have any business, and you won't have to worry about IT or any of those other issues. So, marketing. I always say start with marketing. And what are the strategies that you're going to implement in order for the marketplace to know about you? So they can be everything like a system for your newsletter, being consistent with that. If you're blogging, consistent. And how do you do it? How do you upload that to your website? How do you do that? Do you need a checklist? Are there certain things that you need to make sure are being done every single time? When it comes to, let's say, a referral program that you want to put in place, what are the strategies around that, and what systems are you putting in place for that? So anything with respect to any kind of marketing you do, stop and ask yourself, do I just do this because it's immediately in front of me and I chase after it? Or do I actually have I documented a process so that I can repeat that over and over and over again? Or even better, if I came into your business and you said to me, Kerry, can you handle this piece of my business, that would be flow-charted or at least documented enough that I could follow that checklist. So I'm going to ask you that question. Think about that for a moment. So then the next one is sales strategies. So once you've got your leads, once you've got people who are calling you or contacting you through your website or whatever that looks like, what's your next step? How do you actually convert them then to being a client? What's the first step? What's the second step? Do you actually have a sales process that you walk somebody through? That you know at every step along the engagement with that potential client, you know exactly what their next step is. Because remember, their experience of you and how you handle that first piece, again, is about congruency. How you handle them in that sales process will be how you'll actually handle the working with them. So think about all those steps in that sales process. Do you also have a system for tracking how many of those leads actually come in? Where they come from? What was the source? Because how do you know if your marketing strategies are working if you don't know how many people are responding to the work you're doing out there? And that's everything from networking to, again, ads, to your website, to social media, whatever marketing strategies you're putting in place. You need to have a system for tracking that. And then you also want to track how many of those people actually become customers. So then you know how you can focus your efforts, because you're going to focus them on the areas where you're getting the best return on your investment, your best ROI. So if you know for you, for an example, is networking, because of the nature of your business, is the best place to do that, or the best way to develop relationships, it's really relationship marketing, as that's your strategy, then you want to be tracking all the various events that you go to see where you're drawing the most prospective clients from. And then you want to track how many of those people actually convert into clients. Because then you know, okay, well, if my conversion rate, for an example, is only 25%, well, what would it look like to my bottom line if I converted just 10% more than that? Okay, well, then what do I need to do in terms of my sales process to convert more people? And until you have that data, you don't know what you don't know. So it's really critical to measure that. When it comes to customer service, my experience as coaching lots of solopreneurs over many years is that they can get out there and they can market, they can get clients, and they tend to neglect some aspects of their customer service. Because customer service isn't just when you're actually working with a client right now. Customer service is at the very beginning, when you start working with them, or actually when you first meet them. That's a customer service strategy, because remember, how you do everything, or how you do anything, is how you do everything. Then during the process of how you're working with them, and then afterwards, there's gold in those past clients. What are your strategies for keeping in touch with them, making them feel like they're a valued customer? Picking up the phone or sending them an email after they've had an experience with you, checking in with them. What more could you be providing them as value-added service? That's a customer service strategy that, again, you have a system around that, so it's consistent all the time, so they have that experience of you. When it comes to your finances and administration, what is your systems? What date of the month do you actually take a look at your books? When do you tally your receipts? How do you submit any taxes you have? All of those pieces need to be broken down so that you become really a well-oiled machine. So the last day of the month, for an example, is when you work on your receipts, then that's part of a system. And what you would do is you would put a reminder into your calendar to do that, and then you might have a checklist in terms of what you do first, what you look at first. All of those kinds of things. You want to have them documented and in place. A customer appreciation program. What's that? You get a referral from somebody. Are you kind of one-off? Are you inconsistent? What does that look like? So every single aspect of your business, even so much as how do you order your products and your supplies? What's your process for doing that? What company do you work with? Do you have a regular system for ordering supplies so that you're not scrambling at the last minute because you've run out of something? And that creates overwhelm and stress in your business. So every single component all the way through needs to have a process in place. Those are systems for all of those strategies. Okay, so Kathy, back to you. I've hopefully got some juices flowing there with how I've kind of laid all that out for you today.
Well, it's funny because the first thing you dived into was the marketing, which is what I was going to ask you about. And I think, my big question would be, where do you have an actual system that you use, in the sense of, do you purchase a system, or can you create something to track all of these things? Because there are so many different pieces.
Great. And I would say for most solopreneurs, any of the material that's out there is possibly too big for you to be able to get the maximum out of it versus the cost of return. So start with an Excel spreadsheet. Start by a Word document with a table in it, and you start tracking. And I would say start tracking something. So pick one area. So Kathy, for you, I'm going to give you some direct coaching in there, is think for an example of, when it comes to marketing, what's one area in your marketing right now that you see that you're kind of reinventing the wheel every time, or maybe you're being inconsistent, or you're trying to figure out how you do that. So that very first one that you pick, what you're going to do is you're going to sit for a moment and write down what you think the ideal process is with that. And then you're going to actually test it when you do it, and then you're going to go back and forth, make sure it's correct, and then you're going to document it. And then what you're going to do is you're actually going to put that into a binder in place. So if you, for an example, if one of the things that maybe you might be struggling with is that you've got so many different marketing strategies, then I would suggest to start with an Excel spreadsheet so you can get them all out of your head and you've got them visually in front of you. And then if one of them you do the first week of the month, one of them you do the second week of the month, then you actually have those dates spread out on that spreadsheet. So you know actually when you need to be doing those. And then you can put that into your calendar. I want to check in with you, Kathy, because we didn't have as much dialogue as I would normally have with a client. Did that answer your question, or did it answer a portion of it? You need more?
No, I think it's perfect. Thank you. I think that I'm going to do that. It's great.
Good. Excellent. And we'll have more on systems, because this is a pretty big elephant, a pretty big chunk. And so please, for the audience, when you've got some questions on systems, please shoot them off to me, and make sure that I get them so that I can make sure that your questions are answered. You can always go to www.hangoutwithcoachkerry, and Kerry is spelled Kerry, and that's a .com. And there you can watch archived episodes of the Google Hangouts. Soon you'll be able to watch them live on there, and get some free stuff on the site as well. So again, if you want to see me live every morning, 9 a.m. Mondays on Google Hangouts on air, and at www.hangoutwithcoachkerry.com. I want to thank my panelists today, because they challenged me with a couple of great questions, and hopefully they were questions that you had. So I'm going to challenge you, between now and next time you watch one of my episodes, to at least get one system in place. Pick a small one, or pick an irritating one, or pick one that's really confusing for you, or maybe something that you procrastinate on because every time you have to stop and say to yourself, okay, how did I have to do that again? And what's it costing you to procrastinate on that? So I'm going to challenge you, between now and next week, so in 7 days, put one system in place. Document it, check it, test it, look at it again, and put it in place. So until next time, have a successful week, and I will talk to you all really soon. Thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.